All right, my fellow Madridistas, welcome back to Madrid. Welcome back to the channel. Okay, let me give you guys my thoughts on this absolute train wreck of a match last night against Girona. All of the weaknesses of this team were on full display. There's a song by Guns N' Roses. I think it's in User Illusion 2, the Blue Album. It's a song called Civil War. And before the song begins, you hear the voice of a woman. It's a character in a movie called Cool Hand Luke, a very old movie. And you hear a woman say, "What we have here is failure to communicate." Now, while I was watching the match last night, that kept coming into my head because there is just absolutely no communication and no understanding among these players, either up front or defensively. It just was a recurring theme that came to my head. This is a team that has no identity, and the what I find particularly problematic is that it's not just that it's very, very poor play, but it's also a team that doesn't have the character and the determination that we all know about Real Madrid, which is just part of our DNA. I mean, we have won Champions Leagues playing terrible football, but just won them with our heart and our balls. And the problem with this side is that we have neither the football nor the character. If we don't have either of those, I just don't see where we go anywhere. Look, I have a laundry list of takeaways that we'll go through towards the end of the video. They're pretty much all negative. The only good things to come out of this match were that Mili and Rudiger are phenomenal central defenders, and it's so great to have them back. I think the only other positive takeaway is that Kylian is a competitor, and he's a beast. And you could tell his will to win and his determination and that character that I'm talking about that's missing in the rest of the squad. I think Kylian was the only one that really, really looked like he wanted to win no matter what. But look, we were unable to beat the team that has conceded most goals in the entire La Liga, which is unbelievable. Okay, this is the third match in a row in La Liga that we haven't been able to win. Okay, let me give you guys my thoughts on the lineup, the match, important takeaways. So anyway, thanks for joining me. Let me give you my thoughts on this absolutely disastrous night. Let's get started. Madridistas, welcome back. Okay, let's talk about the match last night, and let's start with the lineup. Okay, this is the lineup that Xavi came out with. There were 5 changes relative to the previous match, having a lot to do with the injuries, of course. And there were 3 differences relative to what I was expecting. You had Militao and Rudiger return to the center back positions, which, I thought because they were coming back from injuries that they would probably be on the bench, but Xavi started them from the beginning, and those 2 turned out to be probably the best players for us during the course of the night. He played Fran on the left instead of Mendy or Carreras. Carreras is the player with the second most amount of minutes so far this season, so I do understand he wanted to give Carreras a rest. I'm not entirely sure why he didn't play Mendy, because I think Mendy played reasonably well in the prior match. But the rest of the lineup was sort of, as expected, with sort of Tchouaméni and Fede in a kind of a double pivot, although Fede would drift to the right quite a bit. You had Jude a little bit further up. He would tend to drift left, and then Arda would a little bit further up, and he would tend to drift right. And then Vinny and Kylian up front. Now, at some point, I didn't have an issue either with the player selection or the formation. I'm very comfortable with the sort of 4-4-2-ish type setup. So I didn't really have an issue with that. I think at some point we're going to have to let Kylian rest because, we're so Kylian dependent these days that we're just not giving him a break. And that's a very dangerous thing, because if Kylian gets injured, we're in a heap of trouble. But anyway, I didn't have an issue with either the players or the lineup, but it's just not working. It's not working. Look, we'll go through the match very quickly, and then we'll get to the takeaways, which is kind of the most important part of the video. Look, in the first few minutes of the first half, we looked very, very tentative. I don't know. You could see sort of Fede waving his arms, like telling the team to move the lines further forward. We looked very, very tentative. We never seemed to start matches on the front foot, which is something incredibly irritating. In the first half, we had a lot of ball losses, even from Arda Güler, which is very rare because he's a player that tends to be very good on the ball. We were positioned to sort of press high, but we weren't biting. And this is something that really upsets me, but it's something that it's a pattern. Real Madrid does do this. This is a recurring theme over the years. Sometimes we fall into spells where we kind of ball watch. So we're positioned with players very far forward, but they're not really biting. Like if you're going to position to press high, you should try to poke and stick your foot in and try to get physical. Just being positioned far up front does not mean that you're pressing high. You have to actually press. But we were kind of doing that at half gas, which sort of bothered me. Okay, in the 8th minute we had our first chance. This was a shot by Arda that went near the post. Trent was a little bit more involved than we've seen in the past. He was. You could see him sort of pressing and pushing up and putting some decent balls into the box. We had another chance in the 11th minute. This time Kylian almost scored. We were settling into possession. So the first 15 minutes, I think we were a little bit lost. After about the 14th minute, we kind of started to settle a little bit into position, or at least the ball lasted a little bit longer on our feet. The high press was starting to affect Girona's ability to get the ball out of the back, but we were very imprecise up front, and this is kind of a recurring theme during the course of the season, that we're just terribly imprecise in the final third. In the 17th minute, Arda lost another ball, and I made a note of it just because it's not something we see very often, but he did lose quite a few balls in that first half. In the 18th minute, Vini had a really great play on the left, and he crosses the ball, and the ball trickles in front of goal, but there's nobody there to tap it in. Again, this is one of the many, many problems that we have, that when we get balls from the wing to the middle, there's just nobody there to finish the play. Around the 20th minute, Girona started to sort of take possession of the ball again and started to push forward. I have to say, Militao was, absolutely excellent. I'm really, really amazed at Militao's ability to come back from all sorts of injuries, but he comes back with a huge amount of energy. I just wanted to make a note that Militao, I thought, was really, really present, and probably our best player. Okay, we had another chance in the 22nd minute, a shot by Vini that went high. At this point in my notes, one thing I wrote down is that we look more dangerous without the ball than with the ball. So when we're sort of defending and we steal the ball and then we kind of release a counterattack, that is when we look dangerous. But when we're actually in possession and we kind of move all of our lines forward and we're facing a low block, we're terribly ineffective. So we're actually a better team without the ball than with the ball, which is a little counterintuitive, but I did observe that. Girona had two very good chances sort of back-to-back in the 25th and 26th minute. There was a situation in the 31st minute that really upset me, and it was a play that Fede was at the top of the box in the middle. He had a great opportunity to shoot, and we all know what a wonderful right foot he has, but he didn't take the shot, and he passed it to Vini, who is notorious for making the wrong decision in the final third. So I was just, I don't understand why Fede has become so shy about taking shots, because he has a wonderful right foot, and I don't know why he stopped using it. Arda, again, continued to be a little bit imprecise. Now, when we were in possession, we looked particularly static, so the times that we did sort of move all our lines up and we were facing that kind of low block, we just found it almost impossible to break through because there's just very little movement off the ball. From the 35th minute, the game kind of was a little bit more back and forth, and Girona did look a little bit dangerous on the counters. Brian Gil is a really good player, and he caused us a few headaches from time to time. We had another chance in the 37th minute, a shot by Arda Güler that was sort of deflected. And then in the 39th minute, we had the goal by Kylian that was disallowed. And, this was kind of a very messy play in the box. It seems like It's the only way we score these days is when there's chaos in the box. But it was, a goal that looked okay, but when you watch the replay, it does appear that the ball touches Kylian's hand. So I think that this was disallowed, and it was probably the right decision. Okay, the Girona goal came in the 44th minute, and, it's amazing how we went from possibly a 0-1 to a 1-0 in the space of 2 minutes. And this goal was very upsetting, and I think it illustrates how poor we are at defending. But this is what I mean by lack of communication, because if you watch that replay of the Girona goal, you notice that Mili and Rudiger both gravitate to the same Girona player, and that's what leaves the other guy open and takes a shot completely free of any sort of impediment, because Mili and Rudiger both drifted to the same player. And this is what I mean by lack of communication and a lack of understanding among the players. Now, this could have something to do with the fact that we've had a lot of injuries, so we've had a lot of player rotation. In addition to the injuries, Xavi likes to rotate a lot in general. He also likes to change style and formations and the positions that players play. And I think if you do that a lot, you don't have continuity and you don't have consistency. And I think maybe part of the reason that these players aren't really understanding each other is because we're not playing consistently. Either the players or the formation, the lineup, the style of play, he keeps changing it. And of course, it makes it harder for the players to create what my uncle refers to as automatismos, automatic play, reflexive play, where every player knows where everybody else is. So everything happens kind of instantly and naturally. We haven't been able to develop that because there's no consistency in either the lineup, the formation, or the style of play. We seem to do something different every match. Okay, in the second half, Camavinga came in for Arda Güler, and I don't know, I have ambivalent feelings about this, because on the one hand, yes, Arda was very sloppy in the first half, lost a lot of balls. It just definitely wasn't the Arda Güler that we're used to. But I mean, was he bad enough to actually take off? I don't know. That does seem like a slightly risky bet, because Arda is our best playmaker. But in any case, Xavi thought that he needed a little bit more steel in the middle of the pitch, and he brought in Camavinga. Okay, we started to try to push forward, and we were in the 56th minute. Very early on in the second half, we had an absolutely incredible save by Courtois, and it's amazing to me how a player that is as tall as Thibaut can get low so quickly. That's a really difficult thing to do, because we know that he's good in the air and he's a super tall, big guy, and he occupies a lot of space, but his reflex saves are also really, really good. I mean, he has amazing reflexes for such a big goalkeeper. Again, another observation that I made in the early part of the second half is that when we would play the ball to the wing and put a ball in the middle, there's just never anybody in the middle. We manage to get the ball to the wing. We have good wingers and we get behind defenders, but when the ball goes into the middle of the box, it's just never anybody there. At this point, Trent, in the second half started to get a little bit sloppier. He had taken some very good, put some good balls into the box, but he was getting a little bit sloppier in possession. Kylian, I have to say, looked really lethal almost in every possession. I mean, Kylian, every time he touches the ball, he just looks so electric. He looks like he has a gear. He's a little faster than everyone else. He's a little quicker than everyone else in short spaces. And he has this kind of hunger and this verticality. I mean, I love it when he receives the ball. He spins. He faces his defenders. And, he's always thinking about going forward. He's always thinking about scoring. And I just, Kylian has the hunger of a champion, the hunger of a winner, and the hunger that we've always had as a club, but that seems to be sort of, missing this year. In the 62nd minute, at this point, we were really, really pushing up, and our play did have a sense of urgency. But one of the things I wrote in my notes is, why the hell does it take 62 minutes and a goal by Girona for us to finally get our asses into gear? It's just very, very, frustrating that we have to have our backs to the wall to inject any kind of energy into our play. Okay, we had a good chance in the 62nd minute, and then 2 minutes later, we had a very good play by Vini on the left that created the penalty. It was a clear penalty. I think in this case, there was very little doubt about it. Vini went down and Kylian scored. That took us to 1-1. Now, after the goal, we kept pushing forward. Militao, I thought, was particularly impressive because he wasn't just defending, but he was also moving up a lot. I mean, you saw Militao actually go into the Girona box more than once. Militao was incredibly active on both ends of the pitch. Just something I noticed that I thought was pretty impressive. In the 71st minute, we had more changes. We had Tchouaméni come out and Rodrigo come in. This is something that made a lot of sense because we need a goal desperately. Although Rodrigo has not been able to provide one since 1973 or something like that. Okay, in the 72nd minute, Kylian almost scored. He passed it to Rodrigo. There were a lot of situations up front where players that have an opportunity to take a shot don't take it, and they end up passing the ball, and the play is lost. And that's something that, I find some of our passing up front very unnatural. Like, why does everybody feel compelled to pass it to someone else? If you have a shot, take it. But on more than one occasion last night, we had situations where the wrong person was taking the shot and the wrong decisions were made in that final third. Around the 78th minute, Girona was sort of starting to get back into the match. Vini sort of missed a shot in the 78th minute. And then in the 79th minute, we had the situation with Rodrigo that, it looked like a penalty. There was contact, but I'm not sure it was enough for me to sort of suggest that it was a penalty. I mean, I think it's one of those 50-50 calls where you could call it or maybe not call it. The ref decided not to call it, but I'm not really going to blame him because it was a very kind of light touch. We had another miss by Vini in the 81st minute. And that, like I say, at this point, the game was a little bit back and forth. In the 83rd minute, another magnificent save by Courtois. And then in the 88th minute, you guys, Carreras and Gonzalo come in, and Trent and Fran come off. Now, can you explain to me what the logic is of putting Gonzalo, who's probably our best header in the squad? He's a natural header because he's a natural number 9. You put him in the 88th minute. But when you put him in, you take off the best passer of the ball of crosses into the box. Okay, Arda's already on the bench, and he's one of them. And then we know that because Trent is a very good, his crosses are excellent. So you put in Gonzalo when there's only like 2 minutes left, but you take off the only player that can feed him. This made absolutely no sense to me. I think this was just terrible decision-making by Xavi. This just makes no sense. We're going to put Gonzalo in so that he can head a ball, but we're going to take off the only guy that can serve him aerial balls. Made absolutely no sense. Okay, in the 93rd minute, we had a sort of awful wasted opportunity by Vini once again. And then we had in the final minute, a missed opportunity by Kylian. That was really close, and that would have been, a fantastic goal. But he just missed the top corner, so the match ends 1-1. Okay, let's get to the takeaways, and this is just not fun for me. But let's go through the takeaways. Okay, number 1, as I mentioned, what we have here is a failure to communicate. This is straight out of the Guns N' Roses song. There is very poor communication and understanding among the players. There's a variety of reasons for that. Like I say, injuries, excessive rotations, excessive style changes, formation changes, and that could be one of the reasons. And the injuries, of course, why if you're not playing in a certain way consistently and with certain regularity of players, this could be one of the reasons that the players are just not understanding each other, I can tell. As I say, my uncle uses the word automatismo, and I think he's absolutely right. We're just not playing in that kind of automatic, reflexive way. Okay, number 2, and it's not the first time you hear me say this, we really struggle to break through a low block. I mean, any team, no matter how modest, and Girona is modest this year, believe me, any team that is even remotely organized defensively, we have an impossible time getting through. And this is because there's very little movement off the ball. To break through a low block, you need very quick passing, very quick 1-2s, or you need people to dribble through players, or you need the threat of a shot from distance, and we're just not even shooting from distance, and we have players to do it. By the way, when we do choose to shoot from distance, it's always a terrible decision. I mean, Tchouaméni had a couple of shots yesterday, and I'm like, why on earth would you try a shot from there? There's no chance in hell that ball's going in. So we there are a variety of reasons why we really struggle with the low block. Okay, takeaway number 3. When the ball gets to the wing, which we are good at doing, we can get to the end line, and we can get the ball to the wings, and we have excellent wingers. We can get behind defenders, the left backs and right backs. We can get behind them. But when we cross the ball to the middle, there's never anybody there. And this is a tactical mistake, and this comes down to the manager. Because there is absolutely no reason in the world why you're able to get the ball to the wing, but when you cross the ball, there's absolutely nobody there. This is something that you need to practice in training. This is something that should be automatic. Every player in the second line should know that when the ball gets to the wing and you see us get behind the full backs, get your ass up into the box, because the ball is going to end up in the box, and we're just not doing that. Okay, takeaway number 4, Militao and Rudiger make a real difference in this squad. I think they both had phenomenal matches, especially Militao. I'm incredibly impressed how a guy with 2 ACL, I mean, this guy destroyed his knees. It's not just meniscus, both knees. And then he had another injury the last couple of weeks, and he comes back and is able to play like this. He is so commanding, so physical. Another takeaway is that Rudiger and Militao are absolute difference makers in this squad, and we need them desperately in that center back position. Number 5, just, generally speaking, this team, with the talent that we have, we're not playing well enough. It's just absolutely completely unacceptable. We're just not playing well enough. We have plenty of talent, but we just are unable to control matches from beginning to end. We always start soft. We're always on the back foot. And we're always sort of desperate, looking for heroics in the last minute. And that is not a sustainable way to play football during the course of a season, always waiting for some last-minute miracle. Look, we've done amazing things historically, but you can't live off this, okay? This is not a style of play. So I just think there's no cohesion. Our play is very random. I don't see a consistent pattern of play in anything that we do. But with the skill of the players that we have, this is unacceptable. Takeaway number 6, like I say, not only do we not have a consistent style of play, but we don't have the heart and the character that Real Madrid requires. And I know that Carvajal is injured, and he certainly, he would be slapping people across the face under normal circumstances, because he represents all the values of Real Madrid. We fight to the bitter end, and we give 110%, and that is not what I'm seeing. So I'm just, it's very disturbing that we have neither the quality of football nor the character, determination, or grit that has always characterized us. That's a real problem. Takeaway number 7, the changes were ridiculous, and I've just mentioned why I think that's the case. What the hell are you doing putting Gonzalo in the 88th minute? This is the kind of crap Ancelotti used to do last year, and it would drive me crazy. I almost broke like 3 lamps in this house. What are you doing? You bring on Gonzalo in the 80th minute, you take Trent off. What the hell is that supposed to accomplish? Again, terrible changes. This is the second match in a row where I have to criticize Xavi for his changes. Okay, takeaway number 8. We actually create a lot of chances. We just don't score. But we do create a lot of chances. We're just unbelievably imprecise in the final third. We're incredibly inefficient in the final third, and I can't really put my finger on one specific reason, but that is a glaring fact. We create chances, we just don't know how to finish plays. Okay, and then the final takeaway I would say is that the ref, and by the way, it's news. In this country, it's news when the ref isn't that bad. I didn't think he was that bad. There were a couple of things that, they got wrong. Like, there was a corner kick in the 5th minute that wasn't given. He called it a goal, but it was clearly a corner. There was another play where Kylian had the ball, and the ball did not go out, but the ref called it out. There were little things like that, but I think that in the very, very key plays, I don't think they made any kind of glaring mistakes, and that's something very refreshing. And in this league, that's news. That's headline news. But I did want to mention that. Okay. Okay, we'll do players very, very quickly. Courtois, I think, had a good game. I don't think he could have done anything in the goal. I mean, that was a bullet that he probably didn't even see. But he had some amazing saves and kept us in the game. So I think Courtois, I'd probably give him a 7 or something like that. Fran was okay. He defended reasonably well. But I just don't think he contributed that much in attack. But I would say Fran had a sort of decent match. I wouldn't say anything spectacular, but a decent match. Maybe a 6 or so. Okay, Rudiger I thought was really good. I'd give him maybe a 7 or an 8. He's just a really solid defender, just very commanding in the air. His presence alone, I think, makes a really big difference. I was also really surprised that Rudiger would be able to come back from injury and perform this well. I thought Rudiger had a really good game. Okay, Militao was exceptional. I'll give him a 9. He was probably our best player. He seemed to be everywhere. He was defending really well, but he was appearing in the attack. He just seemed involved in every play. Very commanding physically. His presence, you just kind of felt him everywhere. Very impressive that he can do this after the injuries that he sustained. I think Militao had a fantastic match. I'd probably give him a 9 or something like that. Okay, Trent. Trent, a little bit bipolar again. I mean, he did. What I did like is that he was more involved than in previous matches. I think that Trent is very slowly starting to get into rhythm. He's starting to participate a little bit more. He's participating more in the attack, putting really good balls into the box. I think he looks a little bit more comfortable these days. So I think maybe Trent is a player that just needed a little more time to adapt, but I am seeing signs of that. So I think he had a reasonable match, maybe something like a 6. He did lose a few balls, they all did. But I think he had a reasonable match, and I think his trajectory is in the right direction. So I'm, pretty happy with Trent. I think, maybe a 6 or something like that. Okay, Fede was not bad. I would say probably like a 6 as well. He played quite a bit on the wing, so he did tend to drift to the right quite a bit. The one thing I will say is that he's not participating in attack as much as I would like. And, he has that magnificent right foot and so much power. I'd like to see him use it more often. I think he had a decent game and kind of defended okay, but didn't participate in attack as much as I would like to see. Okay, Tchouaméni was not as good as we're accustomed to. I think, Tchouaméni he's had a really, really good season, and he's been incredibly consistent. But I just don't think he was as dominant in the midfield last night as we've seen in other matches this season. His decisions to shoot from distance really need a little bit of work. I mean, I think Xavi needs to tell him, look, Aurélien, I'm very happy that you shoot from distance, but, come on. I mean, it has to be in the right place. I mean, sometimes he takes shots that are just a little bit irresponsible. I think Tchouaméni was okay, but definitely not as dominant as other matches. Okay, Arda was very uncharacteristically poor. Arda's been one of our best players this season, and the kid is fabulous. We all love him, and he's just crazy talented. But last night, I think it just wasn't his match. And I think one of the reasons is that Xavi told him to play too far on the right. And Arda is most effective when he's an interior player. When he plays the 10 position behind the forwards, he's very good because he has a 360 radius to play with, and he's good with both feet, and he can really use that space. But when you push him off to the right, it just really limits him, and he becomes less precise with the ball and less precise with his passing. So I think Arda had a poor match, but I think a lot of it has to do with where Xavi told him to play, which was a little bit too far to the right in my view. Okay, Jude, man, was, I don't know, I don't think Jude played very well, and I'm not entirely sure what it was, but I didn't think he pressed and backtracked as much as he usually does. I mean, he's a very, very hard worker. He's one of the most generous players on the squad in terms of physical effort. But yesterday, I don't know, he just felt a little bit absent in attack. He felt a little bit absent even in defensive duties. He just wasn't really kind of present in the way that you expect a player like Jude, who's a box-to-box player. I would have just expected a little bit more from Jude, so I think he was kind of disappointing. I think he had a very, especially the first half, I think he was quite poor. But neither in attack nor defensively did I think Jude have a particularly good game. Okay, Vini, had a really horrible first half, a slightly better second half. But again, he fell into the Vini vices, okay? Like Vini has a tendency, he's got some negative tendencies that he tends to repeat over and over, which is terrible decision making in the final third. And we saw a lot of that yesterday. I mean, I think he was okay just because in the second half, I think he took players on a little bit more. So I mean, I'd give him maybe, I don't know, something like a 6. So I think he went from sort of poor to a little better. But again, this was not the best version of Vini by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, Kylian, I'd probably give Kylian something like a 7 or an 8 because he just showed, in addition to the skill, which is extraordinary because he's a ridiculously skillful player and ridiculously quick. But yesterday he also showed a lot of hunger. I mean, he was the player that most wanted to win. Like in terms of attitude, I think Kylian, he was the feistiest. He was really wanted to win. You could feel it, and there was something about his hunger level that I really, really liked. In addition to his skill, I think he wasn't able to score. It wasn't always his fault. He missed a few opportunities, kind of made the wrong decision on a couple of occasions. But I loved his attitude, and his skill is completely unquestionable. So I'm going to go with like a 7 or an 8 or something like that. Okay, Camavinga I'll only mention because he played 45 minutes, and he was sort of okay. Stole a few balls, but also lost a few balls. He's a workhorse. He works really hard, and I think sometimes you need that kind of metal in the middle of the pitch. But I think he just had a sort of so-so match, maybe a 5 or a 6. Okay, what can I tell you guys? This is getting worrisome because I don't think I would be reluctant to get rid of Xavi. I know that everyone's probably going to go hysterical out there. I do think that it's important to give managers a little bit of time. I mean, at least a season. I do think it's incredibly disappointing that after 6 months we're still playing horrendously. And that is obviously very worrisome, but I would be reluctant to do anything dramatic now. That's just my personal opinion. You guys can tell me what you think. Okay, the next match is against Athletic Bilbao in San Mamés. That's going to be on Wednesday at 7 p.m. And that is not an easy stadium, an easy team to play, especially when they play at home. So we better get our crap together because Athletic de Bilbao is a team with an enormous amount of character and pride, and they're going to come at us really, really hard. So that's going to be, I think, a very difficult match. But anyway, that's where we are. Those are my observations. I'm obviously depressed as hell. Let me know what you guys think in the comment section. But thank you guys for joining me. As always, I love you all, and as always and forever, a la Madrid.